One Piece chapter 1023. Whatever expectations I had going into this chapter, no matter how high they were set, they were blown out of the fucking water after I read this week's chapter. So assuming you guys have just read the chapter and you're coming into this video and you read the title and you're like, wait, out of all of the hype things that he could have titled this video, out of all the revelations we've had, he's focusing on Sanji? Yes, every damn arc. I'm like, Sanji's gonna get a brand new feat, he's gonna get a huge power up, and that almost never happens. Ever since the 2-year time skip, my man has been kind of left in the dust. He's been overshadowed. Whole Cake Island, the arc of Sanji, nothing really happened with him, right? Like, he got the raid suit, but he didn't even use it until this arc. But this chapter, we have the slight hint, that my man is gonna get a power up in his fight with Queen. But you guys know how we do it. Before we start talking about that, we're gonna start from the beginning of the chapter and then work our way on to the end. So without further ado, let's get right into the chapter. We start off pretty much where we left off last chapter, with Zoro and Sanji landing some big meaty attacks on King and Queen. So the thing about this is that they're on the floor, they're not unconscious, and honestly, I doubt they took any damage at all. And after that, we have some sniper marksman person trying to take a headshot at Zoro. I said this last chapter with Sanji, and I'll say it again for Zoro, but even if this guy pulls the trigger, even if he lands that perfect headshot right in the scope, right on the money, 100% accuracy, it would not land. I honestly don't see the point of bullets in One Piece, unless you're Ben Beckman or Usopp or Yasop. Like, bullets don't really matter. Like, when have you seen a guy in One Piece, like a main character, actually get taken down by just some random bullet? Like, that's impossible. Luffy is literally built anti-bullet, but for that main reason, it's not gonna happen. And the thing is that Zoro doesn't even have observation sight haki, but I promise you my man would have dodged it either way, so that doesn't matter. The real reason that's here is to give Kawamatsu and the fodder that is in the area, like Hyogoro, I don't want to call Hyogoro fodder, but we have a bunch of people, a bunch of samurai in the area. They don't really have anything to do, but if they take care of the beast pirates and they keep them out of those 1v1s, now they have purpose. So while Kawamatsu and Hyogoro are taking off on that front, we have some major lore dumps. Marco is being shot at, Izo comes in to save the day, and this is when Marco's like, oh yeah, I remember when Pops was talking about the country of gods that was sitting on top of the red line. It's just funny how that might be what King's race might be as well. And if that wasn't good enough, we also get the potential name to them as well, which is the Lunaria from Queen, because Queen sees Sanji with the Diable Jambe and he's like, wait, like humans that can create fire? You're not a Lunaria, are you? Like, are you one of them? And that essentially spoils what King's race is. So, from what I can gather, the Lunaria are a tribe or a race of people that lived on top of the Red Line before Marie Joie. And this can only mean one thing. This leads more credence as to the fact that the Celestial Dragons, or the upper echelon of the Navy or Marines, took them down and erased them. And the reason why I say this is because the Celestial Dragons, they like to think they sit on top of everybody else. That's why they own slaves. That's why they love to own fishermen slaves and yada yada yada. Being called the country of gods, being this human with super magical powers like creating fire, the Celestial Dragons would either 1, make you a slave, or 2, just erase you. And considering they're called the country of gods and the Celestial Dragons want to be on top of everything, I think it's a pretty fair assumption to say that the Celestial Dragons pretty much wiped them out. Everybody took that guess last chapter, and I feel like this chapter just leads that more credence. So, next up on the list of lore dumps, we have Sanji. He's fighting Queen, and Queen decides to tell us some spicy shit. And it's not really spicy, but he just reminds us that Germa has these artificial humans and the androids, and that the fact that Sanji can create fire out of his leg, that's not human. Sanji cannot be 100% human. And this chapter, Zoro has to protect Sanji. He has to step in, because Sanji, while he's about to dodge one of Queen's or King's attack, he kind of looks at his foot and he's like, wait, something's not right here. Like, this isn't feeling quite right. And I believe this could be one of two things. This could be the lineage factor that Judge has been working on finally coming into effect for Vince Smoke Sanji, or the raid suit might be injecting some crazy DNA inside of him, which I guess also ties back to the lineage factor. But either way, I feel like Sanji is gonna get a crazy power up. I wonder if it has to do with the fire and the Diablo Jumble that he can use right now. Like the way I'm imagining Sanji's power up might go, he might either just get a crazy base enhancement, like, oh, all of a sudden Sanji's bones are like made out of steel or something, or he's just super strong, he has crazy regenerative powers like all of his brothers, or maybe it has to tie into his Diablo Jumble. Maybe he can eventually set his entire body on fire because he can't feel it anymore because he's part robot. That might be a little bit too stretching, but I like to imagine that if Sanji could eventually set his entire body on fire, he would look something very akin to maybe King when he's in his pterodactyl form and he's all blacked out with the cape and everything. Or he might even look like Marco, or, like, definitely not a phoenix, but you know what I mean, like a flying fire creature. Ooh, or maybe Sanji's cape could eventually just catch on fire, and that could just fly him up, and he won't have to, like, kick his legs whenever he wants to get up in the air. The reason I'm saying this is because if you look at One Piece and all the top crews out there, almost every crew has this fire ability user, and somebody that just outright has wings or can fly super well. So I feel like Sanji might be the Straw Hat's best bet, or, best semblance of that character. Also, to finally back up the lineage factor that might finally be coming into effect for Sanji, Zoro takes kind of a sly remark at his eyebrows, like, wait, are your eyebrows okay? Like, what's happening? I feel like Sanji's eyebrows, and the fact that Zoro mentioned that, is a throwback to how Sanji's brothers all have different eyebrows than he does, and since they all have that crazy lineage factor going on, they have that genetic modifications going on, I feel like Zoro mentioning Sanji's eyebrows is a slight reference to the fact that Sanji is turning into one of his brothers, or you know what I mean, like he's getting his brother's abilities finally. He's just a late bloomer. Also, one more little fan theory that just popped up in my head. I don't know, I just love Sanji theories because he has so much room for growth and potential, but the fact that they're calling him Black Leg Sanji, or they're calling him Vinsmoke Sanji nowadays, but if they wanted to do a cool little throwback to his old name, imagine if he could change the color of his flame, like maybe give it a black flame. I think that'd be super dope. It would tie into like Black Leg Sanji. That's just a crazy theory, but it would be cool nonetheless. So next up, after the Sanji fight, we have Zoro versus King. And real quick, I just gotta say how impressed I am that Sanji and Zoro can keep up with these guys. These guys are the upper echelon of the Beast King pirates, the upper tier of pretty much the entire world, I think is pretty fair to say. Because considering Kaido and his crew might be like one of the last 5 villains we actually fight, these are some heavy hitters, man. This is the right and left arm of Kaido. And here they are, Sanji and Zoro putting up a pretty even fucking fight. And I just can't, man. It's too good. It's too good. So on to the fight with Zoro. Zoro goes in, they start clashing swords, and then all of a sudden King's sword turns into like a hair comb. I wasn't really expecting this. I read the really bad spoilers when it first came out, and they wrote, oh, King's sword becomes a comb, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, how is that gonna work? But I guess if Sasaki and who's blades are just ridiculous as well, it would make sense that King's blade is also ridiculous. So King uses the surprise of the comb sword to throw Zoro's 2 swords across the room, and then he goes in for a nasty right hook on the man, and that is when Zoro blocks that fist with the sword in his mouth. And geez, whatever dentist that Zoro is going to, send me their way, because that shit ain't easy. A long time ago, I used to really admire Zoro's fighting style. I was like, oh, that was so cool. Little me watching One Piece on the TV, I had 4 katanas in my bedroom because I'm a weeb. And I picked up one of the katanas, I put 2 in my hand and I put 1 in my mouth, just to carry it like how Zoro does. And let me tell you how much that shit hurts. No human being can carry a sword in their mouth, let alone take a blow from a man like King and just have all of his teeth. That damn near broke my tooth, and Zoro over here taking that blow, not even a chip. It is insane. I love how Oda tries to make sense of One Piece every now and then he does shit like this. Like this chapter, he's like, oh wait, Sanji, your leg's on fire? You thought that was normal? You think humans can do that? You're not 100% human. That's what Queen says. And then here we have Zoro pulling off a pretty much a superhuman feat with his teeth, and then nobody's even batting an eye. I just love it, man. That's so fucking good. But anyways, Zoro mentions, and he's like, oh, if you're gonna fight dirty, I'm gonna fight dirty too. You never said you were a swordsman, so I guess it doesn't really matter. And I love that, because it kind of reminds me of what Zoro said a long time ago, where he essentially said, we are not playing pretend pirates. This is the real deal. Pirates are shitty people. He doesn't say the shitty people part, but he essentially insinuates that. He says, oh, pirates are pretty dastardly people. They're gonna fight dirty, and you gotta fight dirty back sometimes, and that's what's going on here. And then we cut back to Hyogoro and Kawamatsu. I would assume they took care of all the fodder in the area, or maybe the other samurai are handling that, but they're literally just sitting here reminiscing, and they're like, wait a minute, Zoro is fighting quite particular. Like, he reminds me of that Shimotsuki guy. He uses the exact same style that he does. And wait a minute, he also really resembles Shimotsuki Ryuma. Wait a minute, he also brought back his sword. Something's fishy here. People have been guessing ever since we got to Wano that we would get some backstory as to who Zoro's potential family is, and people have heavily been leaning towards the Shimotsuki clan, and if this isn't essentially confirming it, I don't know what will. Honestly though, knowing Zoro's character and how he just reacts to a lot of things, even if they were to tell him that he was part of that clan, or like, hey, this is your dad's grave, I honestly don't think Zoro would care that much. He might pay his respects, but Zoro is a pretty straightforward guy, and he wouldn't really care. He's like, well, it doesn't matter because I am who I am, and it's cool that I'm related to them, but that doesn't negate what I can do now. And the Shimotsuki part generally refers to his master as well, back in that little village. People have been trying to tie him to Wano ever since we got here, so I think that also confirms that as well, since they say the fighting style is quite familiar. And if this wasn't proof enough that he might actually be related to Ryuma, I don't know what will. I was reading the chapter, and I didn't realize that this was supposed to be Ryuma when he was a human. I honestly thought that was just Zoro activating Ashura or something crazy, but nope, that's actually Ryuma, and surprise, surprise, he looks just like Zoro. So one last note before I end this portion of the chapter and go on to the next one, I want to talk about how the Zoro and King fight is going to go. Because Zoro mentioning that he would, gladly do anything dirty to win this fight since King is as well, I'm curious to see how Zoro's fighting style will evolve. Because the entire fight, he's just using his swords, blocking his attacks, and then you have King over here throwing kicks and throwing punches, and I wonder if Zoro will try to match that at some point, because I think that would be pretty cool. Like, imagine King goes in for a kick, and then Zoro also goes in for a kick, while also using his swords. I think this just opens up his playstyle to a wide array of abilities. And then the Sanji and Queen fight, I'm just interested to see if Sanji's lineage factor will kick in. Maybe the fires will be enhanced, maybe, on some odd chance they'll change color and become a black flame. I am just so excited to see how our boys will grow, and I've been waiting for this for such a long time. At least Zoro has been getting really good fights throughout the series. Sanji, he's been getting a lot of fodder fights, and he wins like all of them, right? But the last huge one-on-one we've had was Jabura back all the way in Eni's lobby, and I think it's about time we get a really big fight like this. So next up in the chapter, we have Jack versus Inurashi. I'm glad Oda decided to pay some attention to these side fights as well, but you have to admit, with how hype the first half of the chapter was, you're like, oh wait, nothing can overshadow this, right? Well, Oda decides to keep on bringing up the hype. We finally get to see Jack's hybrid form, and it's a lot cooler than I thought. But at the same time, I'm wondering, it's like, whoa, why didn't Jack whip this out a long time ago? Jack, we've seen this man get wrecked multiple times since we met him. I almost call him Jack the Joke sometimes because he's just so goofy. He got wrecked in Zou, he didn't use his hybrid form, Zunisha slapped the hell out of him. He was fighting Ashura Doji, and I would say he just drew against him. Like, I know Ashura Doji is a strong guy, but it didn't look good for Jack to also just call it a draw and leave. And here we have Jack yet again going into attack Inurashi, and he finally brings out his hybrid form, and it's like, bro, you could have done this a long time ago. Imagine if Jack whipped this out a long time ago, where we would have been like, whoa, he's such a huge deal. He's actually super strong. He's not a joke. But yeah, regardless, he brings it out now, and he's going to town on Inurashi. And this is where he makes a huge mistake. Jack the drought, Jack the dumbass, he knocks Inurashi outside where he can see the full moon. I know that you could say that Inurashi would eventually just go outside anyways, but Jack brought this upon himself. My man knocked this dude into Sulong form. This guy kicked into phase 2 of the boss fight. And Inurashi goes full sicko mode. He has a really cool Sulong form transformation. And you could see the fear. You could see the fear in Jack's eyes once he transforms. And the thing is, if you recall Zoe, Inurashi and Jack were pretty much in equal ground. Jack is pretty much on equal ground to any of the upper echelon of the scabbards, whether that be Ashita Doji, Nekomamushi, and Inurashi. So now that Jack has this huge upgrade, he has this advantage over Inurashi. Inurashi now transforms in his Sulong form, and if I had to guess, I'd say he is slightly above Jack. Which is kind of crazy to think about, right? Like, you have a Yonko commander here in his hybrid form, and he's about to get bodied by a Sulong form mink. Like, that's honestly kind of wild to think about. Like, imagine if all of the minks were as strong as Inurashi was and they all went Sulong form. That would be like an unstoppable force right there. But anyways, moving on, just to almost like throw the brother card out there, we have Nekomamushi also going Sulong form. Perospero just very much regretting killing Pedro right now. You can see it in his face. At first, he's straight chilling, and then he's like, wait, like, why are we outside? Why is the moon here again? The clouds they're no longer covering the sky? Shit. So yeah, Perospero, I think, is going to be a no-diff fight. I think it's kind of a throwaway. Like, at least with Jack and Inurashi, I would be like, oh, it makes sense, you know, like, they're going to fight a good amount. It's a pretty good exchange. Perospero, though, on the other hand, fighting Nekomamushi, bro, he's about to get waxed. So now, final fight of the chapter, we go back to Fukurokuju and Raizo. Definitely the least hype part about the chapter, but it's still there, it's there. And I feel like the only reason it is here is to, one, Oda wants to quickly wrap up this fight. I don't think he's as invested in this as the other fights. But two, there's a small thing that they say here, like, wait, Momonosuke is no lord. He's not going to be the shogun of Wano. He is just a kid. I thought they were going to end on that note, and then we might get a silhouette of Momonosuke, but no. After that happens, we get a beautiful freaking double page spread them cheeks, because Momonosuke dragon form, Kaido form is coming in, and you have Luffy standing in front of him like he's the king of dragons or some shit. It is so freaking cool. And I'm really curious to see how they color spread him. We know that Momonosuke is a pink dragon, so I can assume the clouds are either going to be blue or green. And either way, I think it's just going to be a super cool design overall. I thought Kaido's design was badass, but now we have like Chroma League of Legends skin Momonosuke in for duty. And I'm really excited. It looks super badass. And I'm surprised that Oda didn't go with the silhouette of the dragon, but instead we had a silhouette of adult Momonosuke, and we realized that he's only 28 years old, so he's not an old man. It's nothing super crazy. And I think it's funny because now Momonosuke is also older than Luffy. And, you know, he's old enough to be the Shogun of Wano, you know, no doubt. I think he's lacking in the maturity sense. I think internally he's still going to be a kid. I don't think he's going to be as strong as Odin was right off the bat, because I feel like he will have to train and learn that fighting sense. He's not just going to age and automatically get all of that out of nowhere. This isn't Dragon Ball Z. He's not granola. But yeah, we have a really cool spread of Momonosuke. This pretty much clears up the whole Onigashima falling situation. If Kaido's like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of the clouds and now Onigashima's gonna fall, Momonosuke can very easily lift it up with his Devil Fruit Dragon Clouds because he's just so big now. And one last note before I end this off. Shinobu starts crying when she sees Momonosuke, you know, in his adult form. And she says, oh, you look just like him. And I'm so curious to see what he's gonna look like. I'm just gonna show, I don't own these images, they're not mine, but if you Google adult Momonosuke, you get all these cool images, right? Like, it looks so badass, he looks so unique. And then with Shinobu saying, oh, you look just like him, I am afraid they are gonna make him look like Odin in some crazy way. Like, oh, I don't know why I'm afraid of this, but I just hope he doesn't look exactly like Oda. I hope they keep this design going and they don't make him look exactly like Odin, because if you look at Kid Momonosuke, Honestly, without like the haircut, I cannot see how he would resemble Odin at all. His facial structure is completely different. His body is completely different. Like, I think the fan art has it nailed, and I think we should go with this. But hey, Oda might have something crazy going on. Maybe adult Momonosuke looks just like Orochi, or maybe he looks like Kaido. I don't freaking know. But anyways, guys, what do you think about this chapter? This chapter is hella fucking hype. I don't know, man. Like, I came here, I didn't think it would be this crazy, but it was beyond my wildest imaginations. I don't know how Oda can do this. Like right when you think that he runs out of all the cards in his pocket, the guy pulls out like another fucking deck of cards. Like, he's like, oh, I brought another archetype here I want to try out. But yeah, y'all, keep it real. Thanks for coming to the video. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the likes. Thank you for all the kind wishes on the last video. I'm feeling much better now. No more sickness is here. And yeah, man, keep it up. Next chapter comes out next week. No break. So stay hyped. Thank you.